Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we will cover all the home teams. We'll talk about what's going on with the Saints as they prepare for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll talk about the debacle that is the LSU Tigers in this season, and of course the 48-11 drubbing by Auburn. We'll talk about Tulane's probably best game of the season as they beat Temple 38-3. And of course, we'll talk about the hiring of Stan Van Gundy and the latest news about the possibility of Drew Holiday possibly being moved by the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll cover all that today with one of the best we have in the city. From The Athletic, from Fox 8, and of course an accomplished author, Jeff Duncan joins us on the program today. Jeff, welcome to the show. Good to have you, as always. And if I can do this now, and I guess we're going to do this right here, right? Of course, here's a copy of the book we've been talking about for the last few weeks. And it is now out there, ready for you. It's going to be a great book for you to be able to give to that sports fan in your life in the upcoming Christmas holidays. And Jeff, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been very encouraging so far. I think sales are going very well. The early reviews have been positive. It's always good to have positive early reviews. And look, I'm just excited about the fact that the Saints are responding with a good season.
Yes.
That always helps book sales. And, I talked to both Drew and Sean Payton, and both of them had very complimentary things to say. So that's always good as well because they were a key part of the book.
Well, for those that maybe have not seen the two previous shows that we did where we kind of touched on the book, just an overview.
Yeah, basically it's a story of the Drew Brees, Sean Payton partnership here in New Orleans. Everyone's familiar with it here locally. The last decade and a half, we've all been kind of spoiled by this great tandem that is historic in nature. I don't think the NFL has ever seen a partnership between an elite quarterback like Drew Brees, a Hall of Fame first ballot guy, and a head coach like Sean Payton, who also played the position. And I think that unique kind of like-minded look at the game, the fact that you have a coach that looks at the game as a quarterback and a cerebral quarterback like Drew Brees, who looks at the game almost like a coach. That partnership here in New Orleans, they've broken every almost NFL record for passing, and they've done it and endured for over a decade and a half. Really, the league's never seen anything like this. Really,
and I think we talked about this in the past, the first real inside look at this offense that we've ever really seen from a layman's perspective.
Yeah, and I think probably into the depth that we are allowed to go into on this. You're going to learn a lot about the offensive play calling that big play sheet you see from Sean Payton on game days. It looks like a Cheesecake Factory menu.
Right.
You're going to learn all about the details of that, how much goes into that every week to put together that play sheet for a game. The daily regimen, day by day, what the game plan installation process is like, not only for the coaching staff but also for Drew Brees, and then how it all comes together for the weekend for a given game. That was fascinating to me to see just how much time and resources are put into one game.
Right.
It's an amazing amount of mental energy put in and time put in for a game plan with the New Orleans Saints. And I think that's what I have to stress is that's what makes them unique, and it's a big part of their success is the amount of preparation that they put in. And I think if you're not even a sports fan,
right,
you'll glean a lot from this, how to be successful, preparation, attention to detail. A lot of the principles that work for this New Orleans Saints offense also I think would apply to business or any other part of life.
Any book signings coming up, and how can folks get the book?
Well, you can get it online right now at Amazon, of course, any online dealer locally, all the bookstores in town. I just had a book signing at Octavia Books Uptown. Went really well last week. I had one at Garden District Books as well. Nothing lined up right now locally, but we will have more as the holidays approach.
Beautiful. And again, look, if you got a Saints fan in your family, and look, in this town, who doesn't? Great opportunity to learn about the inside look at this offense. Let's talk about this year's team. Let's talk about what's going on right now. 5-2, big win over the Bears, 26-23 in overtime. We'll get to that in a moment. Of course, taking on Tampa Bay, second game against Tampa Bay this season, Sunday Night Football this Sunday. But let's start about something, a story that you broke a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And that was the kind of an inside look at what was going on with Michael Thomas inside the locker room, inside the organization. It was the first time that I think a lot of us who are not in the locker room on a day in, day out basis got a different look at Michael Thomas on what was going on inside of the organization. Talk a bit about it, if you would.
Well, let me just preface it in this way. I don't think Michael Thomas is a cancer.
Okay.
I think a lot of people might read that column and think, oh my gosh, this guy, we've got to get rid of him. He's going to be traded. There's a lot of speculation about that nationally, not locally, nationally. It's not to that point. It's mainly just Sean Payton. One of the analogies he uses a lot in coaching, it's a Bill Parcells term, and he uses the analogy of saying coaching's like gardening. Mm-hmm. The locker room's like gardening. You have to do it every day. If you don't, it gets out of control.
You got to pull the weeds.
And that's what he's doing. He's tending to the garden right now. He's making sure that these weeds don't get out of control.
Yes.
Some of the little things that have cropped up with Mike Thomas behind the scenes, behind closed doors in that building, they are just basically sending him a wake-up call and saying, look, you need to kind of check yourself here. This is not how you carry yourself professionally within this organization. The Saints organization is different than a lot of NFL teams. I mean, this is a very kind of mom and pop organization still. They very much pride themselves on having a good, positive locker room. They do a lot of stuff in the community. And Mike Thomas, when he got that large contract a year ago, basically paying him $20 million a year, there's a responsibility that comes with that to be a spokesman for the organization, to carry yourself in a professional manner, both publicly and privately within the building, with your other support staff and employees.
Yes.
And some of those things had kind of been let go, and he had a reputation of being difficult to deal with. And look, a lot of players can be that way from time to time,
Sure.
but it was becoming prevalent with him to where I think what happened at practice with his fight with C.J. Gardner-Johnson and how he responded to that. And that's the other thing I wanted to make a point about. It wasn't the fight. It was how he responded to the fight. There's a reason he was the only one that was disciplined.
Yes.
There were other people in that fight. None of them were disciplined. And that's because he did not handle it properly. After that, he was basically insubordinate with Sean Payton and the coaching staff, and that's why he sat down for a game.
Now, look, they could have thrown the book at him, so to speak. They could have, again, called it a suspension, which would have gone into his bonus, which would have took a lot of money out of his pocket. They did not choose to go that direction. Why?
Right. Well, I think they were just trying to give him a wake-up call. They knew that was going to cost him a lot of money.
Right.
It ended up, relatively speaking, not costing him all that much money.
Right. $59K.
Right. For someone making $20 million a year, that's not that much money.
It could have cost him most of his bonus, right? Because it was conduct detrimental to the team.
Exactly.
If they would have suspended for
but
that.
The fact that they changed the injury designation on the official injury report to non-injury related, or I can't forget the term, that tells you right there they wanted this out, that they wanted people to know about what had happened. They weren't going to try to cover it up, and the Saints in the past could have easily tried to cover it up. And if they wanted to, they could have kept that thing in-house. And they chose to make an example out of Michael Thomas. They wanted him to learn from this. And I think the message was sent. From everything I've heard since then, everything's been handled properly. He's been tremendous in how he's handled it with his teammates. And I know Drew Brees spoke to us after the incident. He said all the team leaders have talked to Mike Thomas. That's what I expected from this team. This is a veteran team, has strong leaders. I think Sean Payton let them handle it.
Right.
And that strong leadership core, I think, has addressed it. I don't think it's going to be an issue going forward.
So all that speculation about a possibility of him being traded on the market, speculation.
Yes. The Saints were never trying to trade Mike Thomas. Now, other people might have seen what happened here and presumed that he might be available and made calls. His agent, I know, was not happy with how everything was handled and may have made an emotional plea for a trade, but that doesn't mean the Saints were going to trade him.
Right.
And they have the rights to him. He's under contract for, 4 or 5 years now? 4 years. The Saints know he's arguably their best player on the team. They're trying to win a Super Bowl, and it's an enormous contract. They would eat a ton of money.
Right.
It made no sense to think they would trade him.
It's an untradeable contract right now.
Yeah, so that was just idle speculation. And if you noticed, none of the news came locally. It all came from national sources that, frankly, weren't very networked.
So the speculation that the injuries may be a faux injury, those are legitimate injuries. The ankle and the high ankle sprain, which we know, and then, of course, subsequently the hamstring that happened, which has kept him out. Hopefully he will be back this week. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's going to be back this week. Drew Brees said yesterday, pretty much, let the cat out of the, he basically said both players are going to be back, he and Emmanuel Sanders, Mike Thomas. And so I think we can expect to see both of those two top receivers in the lineup.
With that said, let's talk about Alvin Kamara and what he has meant to this team. A lot of comparisons to Reggie Bush when he was here because of the receiving prowess. You look at what he has done from the line of scrimmage. Again, as far as an all-purpose back, the best in the league right now. Some are talking about MVP. I think he's been the best player from the line of scrimmage all season long up to this point. He's carried this team, especially with the injuries that we've seen within the receiving core. Your thoughts on Kamara thus far?
Well, I think he's well on his way to being the best all-purpose running back the Saints have ever had. I think Deuce McAllister is probably still the best pure running back. I mean, they've had some great running backs in this franchise history. They haven't had one that is versatile with the myriad skill set that Kamara has, and I think he's going to end up breaking almost every record for running backs. He's on pace right now to break the NFL record for receptions in a season.
Yes.
And he's going to be up there in all-purpose yards as well if he stays healthy. And I think the fact that there's been no Mike Thomas in the lineup, and every opponent knows they have to stop Alvin Kamara, and they still can't stop him, says a lot about his ability. And he's healthy again. I think we all see how he's responded when he's healthy, that he is a feature back. And the other thing I think shouldn't be lost on this, he got a contract too right before the start of the season. Just like Mike Thomas, he's rewarded the Saints for that investment. There comes responsibility with that, just like Mike Thomas has a responsibility. Alvin Kamara's been much more out front with the media. He's doing more with the community. He's responded the way the organization wants when they make a big commitment like that. So I think everything's been positive for him so far, and he looks terrific on the field.
He really does. And, of course, a little bit of a bone bruise right now. Hopefully that doesn't slow him down any. Only thing that has slowed him down in his NFL career thus far has been injuries. Yeah,
and it really was just the one last year, that derailed him a little bit. I've got a big story. Let me give a shameless plug coming out next week on The Athletic about his college career, kind of a retrospective about, because I think it's fascinating a player this good had this checkered college career, really never made a huge mark anywhere he went. He started out, I don't know how many people know his background, but started out at Alabama. He was a elite recruit, came out of Norcross, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. went to Alabama in the same recruiting class as Derrick Henry. Amazing. You could make the argument, Eric, the two best running backs in the NFL right now are Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara. They were in the same recruiting class at Alabama. He got caught up in numbers there. They already had T.J. Yeldon and Kenyon Drake a year ahead of him. Ends up getting hurt, just had a bad freshman year, bad experience, transfers to Hutchinson Community College, has a breakout year there, then goes to Tennessee, and also falls behind Jalen Hurd, who is a year older than him and is now with the San Francisco 49ers, a great player there. He's not made his mark in the NFL yet because of injuries, but he's an elite player. And he never really earned a starting job until Jalen Hurd transferred to Baylor. So that's why he dropped to the third round. He was always the same elite running back. And I asked Nick Saban yesterday on the SEC coaches conference call about Alvin Kamara, and he said they always knew he was going to be this kind of player, that he was one of the most talented players they've ever signed at Alabama. That speaks pretty highly of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the so-called demise of Drew Brees, which has been greatly exaggerated on a national stage more than anything else. What he's been able to do. You know, the big term now is air yards, but you know, again, this guy continues to just win. And look, the offense, you know it as good as anybody because you've been involved in learning that offense for your book. You know, the offense has kind of changed as far as, you know, with Brees' skill set as well. Look, they're moving the ball. They're scoring almost 30 points a game. Know that he may not throw the long ball like he used to, but he can still get to the second level, and he can still get to the outside in terms of throwing balls to the outside. I've always said Brees' career can be prolonged with a strong running game and a good defense, and because he is still accurate. And just, again, you can't put a price on the knowledge and what he does in terms of checks on the field in terms of in the middle of a game. Kind of talk about Brees right now.
Well, I think you make some great points. First of all, it reminds me a little bit what's going on with Brees, a little bit of what we all get guilty of before the NFL draft, where there's this over-analysis of prospects and even the elite prospects, the top 10, because you have 3 months to evaluate them, we start picking nits on their skill set, and we look at what they can't do instead of what they can do. And that's what's going on with Brees. Everybody's focusing on how many bombs he's throwing instead of looking at the rest of what he does and the fact that the team keeps winning.
Yes.
The Chicago Bears certainly know that his arm strength is limited, and it didn't matter. He still won the game.
In a windy Soldier Field, right?
Right. And that was by design, by a lot of it, the strategy the Saints took into that. But I think where he really comes into play is what we've seen the last few weeks in the 2-minute offense. I have a whole chapter in the book on his wizardry in the 2-minute offense. All those things you talked about, his experience, his knowledge of the opponent, his ability to process information very quickly in a high-pressure situation, all that kind of converges into this 2-minute drill where the best of Drew Brees comes out. He calls all the plays himself, and he's been able to drive them to touchdowns now in 5 straight games right before halftime. The last 15 seconds, they've scored a touchdown. The last, I think, 3 weeks, the last 2 or 3 seconds, the last 2 weeks, those plays win games. I mean, those drives win games. And there's only so many players that can execute that and do it as efficiently as Drew Brees. And I'm telling you, everyone's going to miss this guy when he leaves because they take that stuff for granted. It's not that easy to do.
There is no doubt. But that's where I want to go next. He is buying a condo in the new Four Seasons. He's been selling property around the country, Hawaii, San Diego, etc. He's still playing at a high level. Do you think this is it? Or do you think there is a chance that maybe, again, still playing at a high level, still a young team around him, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that he comes back for another season if they don't win the Super Bowl? Even if they do win the Super Bowl, do you think this is the swan song?
You know, I don't know. I know it's a cop-out, but I don't think he knows. I think if I had to be put to a test, I'd say it probably is his last year, just because I know he came very close to retiring last year.
Yes.
And I don't think a lot of people know that, but it was very close. And I just think there's going to reach a point where he's been in the league now 20 years. That's an incredible career. He's very healthy. I know he wants to spend more time with his family, and he has business interests beyond football that I think he wants to pursue. I think he finds himself a lot like Peyton Manning, challenged by other disciplines, and I think he's eager to start another chapter in his career, but I don't think it's a done deal by any means. I don't think he knows that.
Right.
He'll decide at the end of the year, and a lot's going to be determined on how the season plays out, where the team's at, and how much the team wants him back.
Do you think this battle with Tom Brady over supremacy of all-time quarterback records has anything to do with maybe him sticking around?
No, I don't. I mean, at one time I would have thought that, but I think now he's so motivated by his legacy, and he's established himself as the all-time passing leader.
Yes.
Whether it's the TD record, I think he's willing to give that up. You know, trust me, he's competitive. He knows everything Tom Brady's doing. But I think it's beyond that now. He wants to win another Super Bowl. That's what motivates him.
Right. Let's talk. We're going to talk about the defense now, but I want to talk first of all about the move that was made by the Saints this week. They trade a conditional fifth-round pick based on playing time and Kiko Alonso to the San Francisco 49ers for former LSU linebacker Quan Alexander. He is a guy that obviously can cover the tight end. He can cover back out the backfield. Again, an underrated player against the run. He also can blitz the passer. He is, to me, he becomes the most athletic linebacker on the field immediately for the Saints if he can stay healthy. That's been the biggest problem. He's coming off a high ankle sprain. From all the indications, the scuttlebutt out there was he could have played last week for San Francisco, but this deal was in the works. So now he comes to the Saints. He's on COVID-19 protocol this week, so will not be available for the Buccaneers, but will be available for the 49ers the following week. Talk about this deal.
Well, I think the Saints have been working it for a while now. They're trying to upgrade, I think, the position, the weak side linebacker position. I think they would like to upgrade over Alex Anzalone. He's not been very productive. He's also been hurt most of his career, so it also probably provides them a little more insurance at the linebacker position, a veteran guy. They didn't have much experience behind their starting pair.
Yes.
If you saw a couple weeks ago, a lot of people didn't notice it, but Craig Robertson was starting to take some snaps away from Anzalone. That was by design, and I think this move indicates that they were not happy with that second level to some degree, and they needed to bolster it a little bit. But I really don't think, in my opinion, it's going to move the needle much. I don't feel like the Saints' problems on defense are at the linebacker position. I think it's pretty clear where they're at, but I do think it gives them a little more experience depth, and he's got to stay healthy. I mean, there's a reason the 49ers let him go. There's a reason they moved on from him. Dre Greenlaw had become a better player than him and a cheaper player for them. It reminds me a little bit of what happened with Adrian Peterson and Alvin Kamara here, where they brought in a veteran guy and then they drafted someone who ended up being younger and cheaper, and you could move on, but at the time they didn't know it when they signed him.
But again, I would say a need for this team, a linebacker with some speed that can cover, because again, they've had issues in covering the tight end all season long, and even the last year as well. You mentioned it. You teased it a little bit. Let's talk about the secondary, because that's been the issue. The mind-blowing thing about the secondary is, for the most part, with the exception of Malcolm Jenkins, every player on that secondary, even Janoris Jenkins for a while, has had a time within this Allen defense. It's not unfamiliar to them, but the bust are the things that are just continue to be head-scratching, for players that, again, have been playing the same defense for a while now.
Yeah, and it's the puzzling thing, I think, for Sean Payton. I think in some ways you have to point toward the coaching staff. This is a veteran coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball. They've been together for a while, and for whatever reason, they're not performing at the level of the talent on this defense. Now, you could also make a point. I was talking to a colleague yesterday, made a really good point. You could argue the Saints' three best defensive players have all played worse than expected this year. Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and Marshawn Lattimore.
I would agree.
None of them have played like a lights-out, all-pro player that they've been in the past. So there's been a drop-off in a lot of different areas on defense. They're not getting elite play out of really anybody on that side of the ball for whatever reason, but the secondaries, assignment errors and the mental mistakes they're making, leaving receivers free in the secondary that led to these explosive plays, these chunk plays. They're killing this team right now, and they've haunted them for weeks, even after the bye week where they focused on that. The coaching staff, Sean Payton made them all stay and focus a point of emphasis on eliminating these mistakes, and they're still occurring. And they occurred even last week against a very anemic passing attack in the Chicago Bears. That's not going to be the case this week. They got Tom Brady and an elite receiving core.
Yes.
And I think they're going to get exposed again because if they were giving it up against Darnell Mooney and Nick Foles, I hate to see what's going to happen this week.
Right, we'll get into that in a moment. Talk a little bit about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When you look at this secondary right now, not a lot of ways you can go. I mean, look, Marcus Williams is not the player that they thought he was. He's not progressed like, again, a lot of people believed he would. You got DJ Swearinger back there. Do you go there? Do you move PJ Williams to the free safety position, or do you stay with him? You can't continue to have a safety that's the last line of defense that is not there. He's not your last line of defense. He's late. He doesn't tackle well. At times, again, he doesn't understand the concept of what defense they're in. You can't have, again, busted coverages like we're seeing. It's not all on him, but it is him. Marshawn Lattimore is not playing up to his all-pro label, not even close, to the point that I'm saying right now, if he doesn't play better, it's going to be very difficult for them to pay him top 5 money in a year or so. I mean, again, you can't overpay for a player that's not living up to the billing. And we again, we all know the situation with Janoris Jenkins at this point, in and out the lineup being unhealthy. And Malcolm Jenkins, I thought, had his best game last week.
He got the game ball.
He really did. I thought he had his best game last week. But overall, again, he's not been the player they thought he was going to be. Gardner Johnson, I think, has been exposed now. Quarterbacks know he can't cover the wide receiver from the nickel position, and I think they're going after him. So they've got some problems in that secondary.
That's what I was saying. I don't think, at this point, 7 games in, we know what the Saints are. If they can get a better pass rush, and Marcus Davenport's been playing better,
True.
They can get Cam Jordan. Now, losing Rankins, I think, hurts because he was playing very well, started to really come on. They need to win up front. That's how they're going to have to win games. I don't see them continuing to shut people down in the secondary. I don't think this team is built to win shootouts the way they used to.
Yes.
So I really believe they're going to have to win kind of these grinded-out games where they get in the fourth quarter.
I agree with that.
They have a smart game plan. They're well-coached. And they don't beat themselves. They haven't been turning it over at all. And I think that's the recipe and the formula for this team. But I think the days of them blowing people out and winning by 20 points are over.
Yeah, shock and awe is over.
Yeah,
not
going to happen.
I agree with that. Special teams are playing well, though.
Yes.
Deontay Harris is a star. Lutz is clutch. Morstead, even though, again, he's had some kicks where you kind of go, wait, that's un-Morstead-like. He's still one of the best in the league. And the coverage teams are as good as they get in the NFL. So that's another part of this team where, again, every week you can say that you can almost check it off as a win.
It was a big part of their win against the Bears in those inclement weather and the wind. They played field position, really dominated the hidden yardage and special teams. And I think it's going to be a big advantage for them against the Bucs. It's an area they've got a huge advantage. And I wouldn't be surprised, Eric, if they try to steal a possession with a fake or try to block a punt. They've got to win this game unconventionally because I don't think they're going to match up very well defensively against that Bucs offense. And I don't expect to be able to run the ball against Tampa. Tampa's number 1 in the league against the run, 70 yards a game. The Saints only had 82 yards rushing against them in the opener, their fewest yards all season. And the Bucs take the ball away. The Saints have not been taking the ball away. They got 1 pick against Nick Foles, who gift-wrapped that one to him, but they've not been very opportunistic. So I don't see how they're going to win this game unless they maybe win on special teams with a big play here or there.
Let's go a little bit deeper there because I agree with you. First of all, I think if they're watching the film this week, I would turn the Tampa Bay defensive film on for the Saints defense. That defense flies around. That defense plays with a purpose. That's a different defense than we saw week 1 to now. And again, especially you talk about the best linebacking core probably in the NFL. You look across the line, that line of scrimmage with their defensive line, every single position has a guy that, again, has been at the top of his game in the NFL, or, again, one of the best. Barrett is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. You can go with Sue. You're talking go right down the line of everybody on that line. And then look, the secondary was thought to be young and inexperienced, but not that good. But all of a sudden, within the last few weeks, that secondary turned out to be a pretty decent secondary.
They have 11 interceptions. They lead the league in interceptions. It's actually probably the best young secondary in the entire NFL. Carlton Davis shut down Mike Thomas in week 1. People forget that. Mike Thomas had 3 catches for 15 yards?
Yeah, it was nothing.
He was eliminated by Carlton Davis. I'm sure he's going to be motivated by that game to play this week. But they also have a young player named Antoine Winfield Jr., whose dad was a great player in the league, Jamel Dean. They've got an excellent secondary that is coming into its own. and most of all, playing with a lot of confidence.
Yes. Now, on the offensive side, they had Antonio Brown. I go back in my mind's eye, and I remember the first game with Antonio Brown when he was with New England and Tom Brady. Brady specifically went to him constantly. I mean, it was little short routes here and there, but you know he's one of the best route runners in the NFL. I don't know how much of an impact he makes, but look, you look across the board from, again, a deep offensive backfield in terms of the running back position. They have 3 quality tight ends on that team, and then the wide receivers as a group are as good as anybody in the NFL. And oh, by the way, Tom Brady's the quarterback. That offensive line was a little bit suspect early, but they have blocked well for him down the stretch here. That is again, this is an offense that has to be reckoned with. This is going to be a tough task for this defense.
And they've also got good running backs.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
no
Leonard
doubt.
Fournette's a backup.
Right.
That's
Look at Rojo.
Right.
You know, I mean, you go right down the line. I mean,
there's really no
and with
weakness.
McCoy as well.
Right. They have no weaknesses on offense.
Right.
And anyway, the line was a weakness for a while. That's been solidified. I still think the left tackle position's an area they can attack. You know, they just have not been able to solve that issue. Their right tackle, Tristan Wirfs, was a first-round draft pick out of Iowa, who has become a dominant player very quickly in the league. And I think Tom Brady makes that unit better, just like Drew Brees does.
Yes.
He gets the ball out quick. And I think the guy to worry about is Antonio Brown, because he's such a dynamic, big play threat. And the Saints have been prone to giving up big plays. And Sean Payton said it this week. He said, this guy can change a game in one play. We might have him shut down for 3 quarters, and he makes a 75-yard touchdown catch, and that impacts the game.
I mean, think about it. I mean, Godwin may play, may not play. Again, he's turned into one of the better receivers in the NFL. We know what Mike Evans can do. I mean, and now you're throwing Antonio Brown in the mix. Oh, by the way, Gronk is playing, looks like the old Gronk there. You know, they still have O.J. Howard and Braith at tight end. We go right down the line. I mean, this is a stacked team now. They always were a really good team. And we were always waiting for this team to kind of emerge. They got a really good coach now, and they brought in a Hall of Fame quarterback. And it's changed the whole complexion of this organization.
I think the Saints win this game, if they win it, with special teams and just being smarter and making fewer mistakes. That's how they won the opener.
Yes.
They can't make any mistakes, but that's easier said than done. You know Tampa's been lying in wait for this game for a while. I know they're going to have a limited capacity crowd there, but it's a home game. The Saints have won 4 in a row against them. They're going to get the Bucs' best shot.
Yep. And now with that said, it's not the end-all be-all if they lose this weekend.
I totally agree. Matter of fact, I think they will lose this game, and I still think they're going to win the division. I think they're going to go 7-1 in the last 8 games and end up at 12-4, and I think that's going to be good enough to win the division, because I think the Saints, the one thing I'd say about them is they're consistent with their mental approach now. They bring in it every week, and they're grinding out some of these tough games when they're not playing their A game, and I think they're slowly but surely getting healthier. And the fact is they have some of these injuries, but no one's key is out for the year.
Yes.
Whereas other teams, you look around the league, their injured reserve list is littered with starters. I think the Saints, relatively speaking, are pretty healthy.
Our guest today, Jeff Duncan. This is his brand new book. We'll tell you before we get out of here this afternoon how you can get a copy of this book, or maybe how you can go out and see Jeff at one of his future book signings, how you can find out where that is as well. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Jeff Duncan of The Athletic and Fox 8 is our guest today. We'll be right back till we hear from our underwriters. We'll talk from LSU, Pelicans, and Tulane coming up next.
BURKHARDT's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. BURKHARDT has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. BURKHARDT offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services BURKHARDT provides, visit acpromise.com. BURKHARDT's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Jeff Duncan of The Athletic and also Fox 8 Sports. Remember, you can see him on Fox 8 Sports several times during the week on their programming, including, again, an editorial each and every Monday over at Fox 8 as well. We're going to turn our attention to the LSU Tigers. They're now 2-3, drubbed by the Auburn Tigers, 48-11. It just, I don't know where to begin, but let's begin with Bo Pelini. Okay, because that's been the big question of the week. Scapegoat or culprit when you talk about what's going on with this team right now in the play of the defense. I'll start with this. No offseason to install your defense, okay? Which again, when you're switching from a 3-4 to a 4-3 and you're in a situation where you have to install a defense with young players, you need time to install that defense. They didn't have that. Then there's the narrative out there. He can no longer relate to the elite athlete of today. Well, I mean, do we know if that's true or not? I mean, I have no idea. I'm not on the inside. And then now there's a push from former players, some media members, some boosters to say that, again, he has to go. He's the issue with this team, and maybe elevate Corey Raymond to the defensive coordinator's position. Went back and did the research. There's only one coach on this staff right now that's been a defensive coordinator, Bill Bush at Utah State. That's it. Corey Raymond's not been a defensive coordinator. No one else on that. Not even the head coach has been a defensive coordinator. Okay, so the question is, do you throw the baby out with the bathwater now, considering again how bad historically bad this defense has been, or do you again stick it out with Pelini because of again the effects of COVID-19 on this season? Look, you got a steady head. You've been around this stuff for a long time. What do you think's happening there right now?
Well, it's obviously a mess. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I don't think anybody anticipated this kind of drop-off.
Right.
And it's beyond talent and some of the other issues that we all knew. There was attrition to the roster. But look, anytime somebody experiences a losing season like this, it's always a tendency to try and find a scapegoat. And I don't think it's quite as simple as saying it's Bo Pelini, he's got to go. But let's face it, the defense has been a disaster.
Yes, it has.
And you can make all the excuses you want, but they've got enough talent on that side of the ball to be playing better than they're playing. Even if it is young, even if they didn't start last year, there's still 4- and 5-star recruits over there. They have the best cornerback probably in the country.
Right.
The
best quarterback recruit in the country,
and they're
too.
making other teams, especially at the quarterback position, look like superstars. If you look, it's staggering the difference between what other quarterbacks are doing against LSU and what they're doing against their other opponents. So let's just call a spade here. It's been a disaster defensively, worse than anybody could ever have envisioned. But that also has to fall to some degree on Ed Orgeron's shoulders. He knew what he was bringing in Bo Pelini. He knew if in fact they were going to change defensive schemes, he knew his personnel might not match up to that. If he had reservations about Bo Pelini relating to the younger athlete, he had to know that. That's what you do as a head coach. You get a right fit in there. But changing now is ludicrous. You can't change and bring in. They have no one proven, like you said, to be a defensive coordinator. You're going to have to ride this thing out. They're not going anywhere anyway at this point. And then he's probably going to have to make a change that everybody sees.
Right.
But I have a lot of reservations about how this all went down. When they lost Dave Aranda, you had your choice of who you could hire.
Anybody.
You're the LSU Tigers. You're the national champions. Ed Orgeron has a great reputation as not being a micromanager. They pay top dollar.
Yes.
He could go out and find the next Dave Aranda. He could have found the Joe Brady of defense.
True.
Instead, he went with what I consider to be a very uninspiring hire in Bo Pelini, and it's come back to haunt him.
Right. Okay, let's go to the second part of this. And it's been pointed out by several media members, and it's the quote-unquote culture problem at LSU right now. Look, you can get beat, but at the end of the day, you got to show effort. You can't quit. That team quit on Saturday against Auburn. The flash of the CBS cameras onto the sideline, seeing guys yucking it up and laughing. You can't have that either. You got to have some pride. You're coming. You consider yourself an elite program. You're coming off the greatest season in the history of college football with what happened last year. Taking every award. Yes, I know you lost 19 to 22 starters. You had 14 players drafted, 6 that went as undrafted free agents, and of course you had the COVID-19 defections. But at the end of the day, you still have to again realize that LSU's on your chest, and that there's something to being an LSU athlete. And as far as the team goes, again, coming off a national championship or wherever you consider yourself to be, making sure that you continue that legacy of LSU. Right now, this looks like a very immature team and looks like a team that at some times just doesn't care. And that's the frustrating part for the fan base.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the lack of leadership. I talked to people inside the program before this year even started, and they knew they had a leadership void.
Wow.
And so this does not surprise me.
Okay.
Maybe to the degree it's played out, but I think the losing has exacerbated it, created this culture issue. If they were winning, I don't think we'd be seeing some of these issues. But it does, in my opinion, reflect poorly on the coaching staff, on the leadership in the locker room. There's disconnect there.
There is.
Either some of the coaches have gotten a little complacent, maybe the leaders on the team have gotten complacent, but they're missing somebody to get up in somebody's face and to hold people accountable.
Right.
That has to come from the leaders of the team. It also has to come from the coaching staff, and we're not seeing that.
Well, to your point, again, because look, Ogeron is fair game here, okay? You got the book signing. I don't want to get into personal issues, but again, kids see this. They're on social media. What's going on? He's been out front on 60 Minutes. All that's great. But again, when you're coming off a championship season like that, you got to back it up by, again, continue to be an upper echelon team. This team has taken a nosedive. How much is this, as you mentioned, is on the coaching staff as much as it is on the individual players?
Well, Ed Ogeron said as much this week. He did say it's on me to get this fixed, and it is. Human nature, Eric, when you win a championship like that, it's human nature to maybe take a breath, to exhale, to become complacent. You've reached, you worked so hard to get to a goal, you finally cross the finish line, you win the medal, it's natural to slack off. And that's what's impressive about programs like Alabama that have done this time and time again and fended off the best shots of their opponents and fended off the attrition and replaced coaches over and over. Really, I think LSU fans are gaining a healthy respect for what Alabama's been able to do, because this seems like very much a roller coaster here where they went up higher than anybody's ever been, but the drop off after that hill is pretty precipitous.
And I would agree with you, Jeff, and I think that's what the fans were looking for. They were looking for the consistency that you see at Alabama, that you see at Clemson, that you see at Ohio State. They believe their program is again among that upper echelon, and they didn't think that it would take the dive that it has this year. Look, there are no gimmies in this schedule, except for, again, maybe some teams in the SEC that are not up to the standards. But you don't have the 1AA teams that come in or whatever, the state teams that you can play that you can grab the victory. This is an SEC schedule, and for a team that is doesn't have a lot of experience, obviously there's going to be a tough road, but there's no excuse to quit at the end of the day. That's the thing that I keep coming back to. At the end of the day, you've got to be able to play the full 60 minutes, and this team is not doing that. Let's shift gears to the quarterback position, because it's an interesting situation here now. Miles Brennan, don't know if he's going to be available for Alabama. You look at Finley, he played very, very well against South Carolina, not so much against Auburn. Some want to blame, again, the plan for Auburn because they coddled him against South Carolina, not so much. Max Johnson came in, kind of mopped up. You see he's got talent as well. Look, they've got some talent at the quarterback position. The question is, at this point, is the offensive line being able to protect and of course, the ability to run the football, which they haven't done, again, in their losses. Again, last week, you had 32 yards on 27 carries? Come on, can't win like that.
No, and look, I said in my crystal ball column to start the season, the worst case scenario for LSU is Miles Brennan getting hurt. And that's exactly what's happened. You can't throw, I don't care how talented they are, true freshmen out there on a team that's already trying to replace a lot of other veteran players. It was a recipe for disaster. It played out against Auburn. I was at that South Carolina game. I thought South Carolina had one of the worst defensive game plans I've ever seen. You have a true freshman quarterback. They play this soft passive zone.
Yes.
He carved it up. It was very easy for him. They were able to run the ball. I threw that game out. I was really interested to see how Finley did on the road against a good Auburn team.
Right.
And we saw that's what a true freshman probably going to play like. They need to get Miles Brennan back if they have any hope of salvaging this season. It was too much to ask of young players like that. They're going to make too many critical mistakes like he made.
Right.
But they've got to get back to running the ball. That's been the bread and butter of this team. And I don't know why the offensive line is not playing as well as they should be. I mean, there's no excuse for them to struggle the way they have. And they've struggled against other teams. I mean, Missouri shut them down. And you know, we were talking earlier, I mean, Mississippi State, have they done anything since beating LSU in the opener? We do need some perspective here. Yes, it's an SEC schedule, but they're losing the games that everybody penciled in them to win.
Yes.
Missouri, Mississippi State, those games were gimmies when we looked at the schedule to start the year. So I think I did your radio show last week. I said I think they might be 5-5, and now I think they might be lucky to be 5-5.
And again, that is a fall from grace for a program that again was as good as it was, and also what we've been told about the recruiting. Again, that every year it's 4 and 5 star, top 5 recruiting class, top 10 recruiting class. That also is a big issue. In your crystal ball, Bo Pelini gone at the end of the season?
Oh yeah, I think he cannot come back. Tiger Athletic Foundation is going to have to pony up some money to get him out of there, and they've got to hit a home run on this next hire.
Right, I was going to say you cannot hire from within.
No.
Look, I have all the respect for Corey Raymond in the world in terms of his ability to be able to coach defensive backs and his recruiting prowess, okay? But I don't know if you do an experiment with a Corey Raymond at defensive coordinator after this failed experiment with Bo Pelini. I think you got to get the best of the best.
If I were them, I'd make a call. I don't know if he would leave, but I'd make a call to Ryan Nielsen with the New Orleans Saints. Defensive line coach, he's one of the best young coaches in the NFL. He turned down Southern Cal's defensive coordinator job where he played last year.
Yes.
So he's on the radar to be a defensive coordinator somewhere. He's right down the road. It worked for him with Joe Brady.
Yes, it did. And also worked well for him for Bill Johnson in a pinch. And also, even though Bill Johnson and McMahon took a lot of flack from guys like me and people in fans, et cetera, they've done an excellent job at LSU.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And Ryan Nielsen's a rising star. I don't know if you'd take it, but if you throw enough money at him, it might work.
Well, you know, they got plenty of money.
Right.
There's no doubt. Tulane Green Wave, I think, look, first of all, let's the opponent was Temple. They didn't have their starting quarterback. They've won one game this season. But I thought it was it was the best, most complete game they've had all season. 38-3 winners over Temple. They're now 3-4, 1-4 in the AAC. Your thoughts?
Well, I love that game from them. They got down early and they didn't panic. I think Michael Pratt, you can see the potential in him that he's going to be their quarterback of the future. He seems to be getting better every week. He just has a poise about him. I think they've solved the quarterback issue. That was something that was holding this team back. I think that loss to Navy is going to come back to haunt this team all year. If they win that game, they're 4-3, and they have a real shot to get back to a bowl. I think it's going to be an uphill climb right now. The conference is very competitive. It's been that way since Willie Fritz took over. I do think that they have a chance if they can continue to recruit and keep Will Hall here, who I think is going to be, again, drawing interest in the SEC and other schools. They can keep him here, develop Michael Pratt. I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the future. The young running backs they have on this team are talented. They have a couple young starting freshman offensive linemen. There's a lot of really positive things, but they're going to lose a lot on defense after this year. That defense is still talented. They're going to have guys in the NFL from that defense. Can they replace those players and continue to develop the way they've been doing it?
To your point, defense played as advertised this past week against Temple. They've got to bottle that, and that's got to be the defense for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's been disappointing.
It has been. There's no way to sugarcoat it.
They've been lit up by Central Florida and Houston. Those are good offensive teams, but you expected more. That was supposed to be the strength of this team. And I know Jack Curtis is disappointed with the way they've let some of those games get away from them. They're struggled in the back end a little bit, the safety position with some inexperienced players. Some of the cornerbacks they brought in have not panned out, but that's an area that's been a disappointment. And look, the conference is tough. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That SMU game was a game they really wanted to win. Obviously, that win that game and their season might have turned around. But I do think the program continues to be in good spot. They're recruiting well. They've managed to keep that momentum going. It would have been nice to have more fans.
Right.
It looks like they're going to have fans at the home games coming up. That's good.
That'd be good. And of course, look, you mentioned Michael Pratt. He seems to get better each and every week, and now there seems to be a synergy with him and the pass catchers. We know they have a deep offensive backfield. You know, again, you look at Carroll being a physical back, Jones, kind of you want to say a Kamara type. You know, Hudson is really underrated. So again, offensively they're fine. And as you mentioned, look, if the offensive line can protect Pratt, it's going to give him an opportunity to go through his progressions. They're going to be much better. But he's been surprisingly athletic as well.
Yes.
He's a skinny kid. He's only, they list him at 200 pounds. There's no way this kid's 200 pounds.
He's an interesting story too. I don't know if you know his background, but he was at a smaller school at Boca Raton High School down in Florida. Kind of fell through the cracks there. Transferred before his senior year to a power program, which I think says a lot about him. He wanted to go somewhere to challenge himself. Went to an elite school down there, Delray Beach, that had, I think, 12 other Division I prospects. He won the starting job in a competition, but because there were so many other elite players, guys going to Florida State and Auburn, he kind of fell through the cracks. He was more of a game manager, viewed. And so Tulane, credit Tulane, Will Hall recruited him. They brought him in while a lot of other people did not make offers to him. And I think they've got a good one.
Yeah, and look, a lot of people thought Ayabetta was going to be the kid, was going to be the guy that's going to be the heir apparent.
They're high on him. They still like him too.
No doubt.
So they got two good young quarterbacks.
Look, it's always good to have, especially when you talk about today's college football. Now, if you can hold on to them, that's the key.
Right.
Because again, we know how the transfer is now. If you're not playing, you're moving on quickly, especially at the quarterback position. Let's shift gears to the New Orleans Pelicans. A lot going on with this Pelican team now. First of all, Stan Van Gundy has agreed to a 4-year deal to become the head coach of New Orleans Pelicans. He brought in his longtime assistant Bear, who's going to be on the sidelines with him. 12-season NBA coach. He's a guy that, again, every place he's gone, the team has done much better on the defensive end. To me, this is exactly what I thought they needed. They needed a coach that had skins on the wall and a coach that stressed defense. And now, look, I don't know if he's going to be successful, but I think he checks every box that they were looking for in terms of a head coach. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's a home run hire. Everyone I've talked to in the NBA, around the NBA, in basketball circles, thinks it's a home run hire. I've not yet talked to one person that doesn't think he's going to be very successful. So you have to give David Griffin a lot of credit. A lot of people thought Griff would go out and hire a younger coach, someone that he could mold and grow and groom. Instead, he did the opposite. He brings in Stan Van Gundy, a veteran guy who has skins on the wall. He's won everywhere he's been.
Everywhere.
His winning percentage is, 58%? Now, will this young roster buy into him? I think the makeup of his staff is going to be very important. He's going to retain Fred Vinson, we know, who's done very good work with the shooting on this team. That's a key tenet to Stan Van Gundy's offensive system. They're not done, as we all know. I'm sure we're going to talk about Drew Holiday in a second. They're not done weeding the garden on the roster. There's some things they've got to do there, I think, to get this roster back. But I love the hire, and I think New Orleanians are going to like Stan Van Gundy. He can be a guy that can be out front with the media, with the public. I think he's going to be a good spokesman for the organization. He's someone I think that can articulate what they're doing during games. I think he's going to go a long way toward making a lot of people more basketball fans here in the city.
Look, I'm going to go back in time to Butch Van Bredikoff with the Jazz, okay? A lot of similarities in how they handle the bench, okay? They're very, very active on the sidelines. I think people are going to fall in love with him, much like they did with Van Bredikoff way back with the Jazz. With that said, look, he's a guy that there are some that are questioning. 61-year-old coach, young roster. How does that work? We're seeing the questions that are going on right now at LSU with Bo Pelini.
Well, look, all players in any sport, all they want is, can a coach make them better? Can he help them? Can he improve them? I don't think there's any doubt Stan Van Gundy can do that if the players are willing to listen to him.
True. I agree.
And they're going to have to listen to him. I don't have any doubt about that. The one thing that the Pelicans have is a good bunch of guys on this team. They don't have a bunch of prima donnas for the most part. That's been taken care of by David Griffin in that front office. So I think Stan Van Gundy is going to be great with this young team. I think he's hungry, even if he is in his 60s. He wanted this job. He pursued the job. So I think in the end, Stan Van Gundy's been hungry to get back into the league, and this is a dynamic roster with young talent all over the place. I think it's really be a really good match.
I have been one for the last few years looking at this from a long-term perspective. In terms of Drew Holiday, that said if they can get the deal that again makes this team better, they should move on. Not because Drew Holiday is a bad player, not because he doesn't what he's given to the city or the organization and what he means to that, but again, looking at it from a contractual standpoint, $26 million this year, $27 million next year in a player option, and you don't want to let a player of that magnitude get away without getting compensation. I thought when Van Gundy came in, again, him stressing defense, him being, again, one of the top defensive guards in the NBA, that, again, it would be a natural to keep him on this team, along with J.J. Redick, who has already played for Van Gundy in the past. I was a little surprised when I found out this week, again, as it was put out by Shams Charania and then your colleague over at The Athletic, Will Guillory, talking about the Drew Holiday situation, that, again, Griff is listening, and they always are,
right,
listening to offers. Drew Holiday has not, according to Will Guillory, asked for a trade. Okay, although again, depending on what's going to happen down the line here, maybe that changes over time. Your thoughts on the Drew Holiday situation?
Well, I agree again with you. I think if I'm David Griffin, I'm trying to move Drew Holiday only at the right situation.
You got to get the right
give him
price.
away.
Right.
But this isn't a fire sale. This is not getting rid of a disgruntled player. No. Drew Holiday's happy here. They're happy with Drew Holiday. But the fact is, everything that they do with the Pelicans has to be geared towards the future. It has to be geared towards 2021, this young core and beyond. Because that's when this group is going to finally start kind of realizing its potential. It's not going to probably even happen this year. And Drew Holiday, frankly, is not going to be part of that core down the road.
No.
So you might as well move him while he still has value, probably at his most value right now that he's ever going to have. You can move his big number off the books in a year, frankly, when they probably need to, with how things went with the revenue streams and due to the pandemic. All these things make a lot of sense to me, and I think they could probably get a lot in return for Drew Holiday. He could be the final piece to a contending team that's one player away.
Right.
And I think that's going to have a lot of value. He's well respected around the league as a two-way player, and I think the Pelicans could get maybe another draft pick and another young player.
I agree.
For him in return.
Either that or a couple veterans that again could be mainstays as far as coming off the bench or whatever you need. No, I look, he's going to fetch a lot of value. That's why, again, I was interested to hear that over the last 24 hours. We got about a minute left, and I want to talk about the book before we get out of here. Brandon Ingram. I got to believe he's going to get the max deal. I got to believe it's going to happen. Look, again, it's going to be a sprint with this offseason with the NBA, with possibly a December 22nd start. The draft on the 18th of November, free agency shortly after that. It's going to be very, very quick in terms of fashioning a team. Your thoughts on Brandon Ingram?
Oh, well, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, he's a core. He along with that, Zion Williamson.
You're building around those two.
The two pillars going forward. Everyone in the organization wants him back. He's happy here. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
One more time, Jeff, tell us about this fantastic book, how folks can get their hands on it, and what you're going to be doing possibly in the future.
Yeah, hopefully some signings. I tell you, the best way, if you're interested in the book and you want to get a signed copy, you can go to the Facebook page. It's Peyton and Breeze on Facebook. Just do that Google search on Facebook, and I have a page set up, and you can do direct orders with me, and I can get you out a signed copy. I can personalize it to you. That's probably the easiest way to get a signed copy, because unfortunately, during some of these restrictions, we can't get out. But you can also find any kind of news related to it on my Twitter handle at @JeffDuncan_.
And of course, Jeff's writing for The Athletic. Also, you can catch him on Fox 8 on their news and all their sports program as well. Jeff, thanks for the time today.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
Always appreciate it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there is a rebroadcast of this program tonight at 6 p.m. and also again on Friday night at 10 p.m. right here on WLAE-TV. You can catch us on the Deuce, WLAE-TV 2, tonight at 10 p.m. Also on Saturday at 2 a.m. in the morning if you're up. On Pelican Sports Television, on 9 o'clock on Pelican on Friday, and also 5 o'clock on Saturday. Had to get all that in. Also, you catch me on the radio on 106.1 FM. That is 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Most of the TuneIn Radio and the iHeartRadio apps are also how you can listen live to the program. And by next week, we'll have a podcast up as well. Also want to thank Jeff Duncan for joining us in the program, our incredible staff here at WLAE-TV, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Tommy O'Connor, Tommy Fairley, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Eric Asher. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.